My son is here to say hello to everyone. This is Tony. He's the best little guy in the world. Hi guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I am showing off all of the books that I read in September. I was pondering what was going to be my first proper BookTube video since coming back, and what better way to show you what I have been reading over the past couple of years than to highlight my strongest reading month of the year. I read 16 books in the month of September across a fairly wide range of genres, and I thought that I would give you some stats as well. So across those 16 books, 6 of them came from publishers, 7 were physical books, 5 of them were audiobooks, and 4 of them were ebooks. I'm pretty sure that adds up to 16. And I read 7 horror books, 5 fantasy books, 2 crime books, 1 nonfiction book, and 1 contemporary commercial fiction book. So this is what I thought of all of those books, rapid fire-ish style, because I yammer. So first up, I read Among the Burning Flowers by Samantha Shannon. I read Priory back when it came out. I think I've still got a review up on this channel. I'll double check. And I liked Priory, but I was not blown away by it like a lot of people seem to have been. I did read Day of Fallen Night earlier this year, and I was blown away by that book, and I really, really loved Among the Burning Flowers as well. So this is a prequel to Priory. It takes place about 5 years before Priory takes place, not 5 years after Day of Fallen Night takes place, which is what I initially thought, and I was off by like 400 years. But it sort of fills in some of the gaps of the story in Priory, gives you a little bit of background information. I'm actually really tempted to reread Priory now. I love this. I gave this 5.5 stars. I gave this 4.5 stars. Next up, I read Cinder House by Freya Marske. I have read one other book by this author, and I thought it was okay. And I felt similarly about this one. I suspect that perhaps Freya Marske isn't necessarily an author for me, but this is just a little novella. It is a Cinderella retelling, and I had some of the same issues with this book as I did with, oh my god, what's the first one called? I absolutely cannot remember what that book was called. Her debut novel. I had similar issues with kind of sloppy editing and pacing, and this book was only like 150 pages, so that's not ideal. Also, perhaps it's because I am not a spicy reader, but I found that some of the spicy scenes that were thrown in really felt shoehorned in. They didn't feel earned. They felt like something that was kind of thrown in as an afterthought because, people tend to like spicy books, so let's throw in some spicy scenes, and it didn't really work for me. I gave this one 3 stars though. Oh my gosh, I read Snake Eater by T. Kingfisher. Now, I have become a full-blown devotee of T. Kingfisher over the past couple of years. I absolutely love her. She is my most read author of this year, and this is her upcoming release. It's coming out in November here in the UK, and it is fabulous. This is one of my favorite books of the year. It is a fantasy horror novel. It combines those 2 elements really well, and of course she's known very well for writing her fantasy and her horror books, and I thought this was just absolutely fabulous. This book features a woman named Selena who is on the run from a bad relationship, and she flees to her aunt's home in the Arizona desert only to find out that her aunt has passed away, and she ends up kind of moving into her aunt's old house, and strange things begin to happen. This has all the hallmarks of a really, really good T. Kingfisher book. We've got an amazing world and sort of those fantasy elements that she brings in. The horror is horroring. It's very, very creepy. It has great banter and great wit. It has fantastic characters. I love Selena, and I love the supporting cast of characters as well. And it has a very good dog in it. What more could you want? I gave this 5 stars. Then I read a copy of White Teeth, Red Blood. This is a collection of classic vampire poetry that's come out from Pushkin Press, and my main issue with this book is if you're going to tell me that you have a volume of vampire poetry, there better be a lot of vampire poetry in it. I don't want metaphors of blood being drawn by a nurse counting as vampire poetry. That's not what I want. I want the vampires, and we got some good vampires in this book, but not nearly enough, especially because it was a little tiny volume. So this one wasn't necessarily for me, but if you like poetry, which I don't typically do, and you like classics, I would definitely recommend picking this one up, but 3 stars. I listened to the audiobook for Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan, and I liked this book, but I wasn't blown away by it. It didn't wow me, and I'm definitely not clamoring to pick up the rest of the series, although I may do at some point. But knowing my history with series, probably not. This is a historical fantasy book set up as though it is a memoir of a woman writing about her sort of adventures and exploits as a young woman. And while I really liked a lot of aspects of this, I really loved Lady Trent's kind of voice that she has. I had some questions and some kind of quibbles with some of the contents of the book, and overall, It didn't capture me as much as I would have hoped, but I did enjoy it. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. I read Tokyo Express by Seicho Matsumoto. This is a classic Japanese crime novel, which is something I'm very much enjoying these days. There seem to be a lot of publishers, big shout out to Pushkin Vertigo, who are publishing a lot of these kind of golden age of Japanese crime novels into English, sometimes for the first time. This one happens to be Penguin. It's not Pushkin Vertigo, but that's okay. In this book, we have the bodies of a very attractive couple who are found dead on the beach, presumably from cyanide poisoning. It looks like a kind of lover's suicide. However, the local detectives are not entirely convinced. Most of this book is about breaking an alibi, which I enjoy, but I wanted a little bit more puzzles and crime, you know, that you usually get in a crime book. We were really focused on that alibi, which was fascinating, but it was a lot. But this is a really fun read. I gave it 4 stars, and I'm definitely going to be seeking out more of his books. With all of the knitting and quilting and sewing that I've been doing, I figured that I really need to get back to audiobooks. So I went back into my old Audible catalog. I no longer subscribe to them, but I do still have all of my old books. And I picked up The Scandalous Lady W by Hallie Rubenhold. This is a nonfiction book, and it's a really great audiobook. I really enjoy her stuff. She's the person who wrote The Five, and she also wrote The Covent Garden Ladies, which I think was turned into a TV show called Harlots, perhaps? Again, this is a nonfiction book that follows a very, very scandalous divorce case. It is truly, truly juicy gossip. I really enjoyed this one. Apparently it's been made into a TV show, which I might go ahead and check out. But this was a really fun one. It was fairly quick, and it was one that you could really get immersed into. I really, really enjoyed this. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I then picked up another audiobook, and that was Welcome to the Hyundong Bookshop by Hwang Bo-room. This was a really, really nice book, and it was a great audiobook. I don't know if I necessarily would have gotten into it as much if I had read it as a physical book, because it's very calming. It's very much a slice of life. There's not a lot of plot going on here, but it's a really, really kind of lovely break from reality. This book is about a woman who decides to leave her old life behind and open up a local bookstore, and it's about her and the people who work with her and the customers who come through the bookshop doors. I definitely recommend this book if you're looking for a really lovely escape, but if you want a book that's really heavy on plot, this isn't the one for you. I gave this 3.5 out of 5 stars. I was in Glasgow in August, and I picked up the anthology of Scottish Folktales, volumes 1 and 2. I read volume 1 this past month. This little book is put together by the Scottish Storytelling Centre, who are a lovely organisation, and it is separated into regions of Scotland, and there are a number of different storytellers who are recounting their favourite tales from, say, their childhood or that their family members have told them, and they are passing on to us. It's a really lovely little book. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Oh boy, then I read The Bewitching by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I am a massive, massive fan of hers. While I don't always love all of her books, there have been a couple of misses for me. I generally absolutely adore her, and when she hits hard, and this was fabulous. In this book, we follow the stories of 3 different women through 3 different timelines. We have Alba, who is a young woman living in Mexico in the early 1900s. Then we have Minerva, who is Alba's great-granddaughter. She is going to university in the northeastern United States, studying a particular horror author who's very obscure, who also went to that same university. And then we follow that author in, I believe, the 1920s, as she is at this university and her best friend / the woman she loves disappears. This is such an incredibly ambitious book. I'm amazed she managed to do it in 350 pages. I absolutely love this. This is one of those very rare, very special books, I think, where it has multiple timelines and multiple points of view, but every single one of them for me was just as captivating as the others. There were no weak points here. I loved her incorporation of Mexican folklore with the kind of northeastern witchcraft witchiness that many of us Americans are very familiar with. I love the way that those intertwined and were incorporated into all 3 of these stories, and it was just fabulous. She's such a great author. I cannot recommend her books, especially her horror books, more highly. I gave this 5 stars. Another audiobook that I listened to this month was All the Hearts You Eat by Haley Piper. This was my first book by her, but I don't think it'll be my last, even though the writing style for this particular one wasn't necessarily for me. In this book, we follow 2 trans women from the same town. One of them is a teenager who has actually passed away before the story starts, and our other character, who is, I believe, in her 20s, finds the body. These 2 women didn't know each other in life, but their lives become intertwined after Cabrina, the teenager, has passed away. I love a lot of the stuff that she had to say in this book, especially about the difficulties of being a transgender teenager in this day and age. I do think that when horror books tend to lean more into the literary side of things, and maybe lean a little bit more into the erotic side of things. They aren't necessarily for me, and this is very literary, I thought, in the writing style. And I think that that wasn't necessarily for me, but I love the story she had to tell, and I really loved the characters. I loved how complicated everyone was, and I love the fact that neither of these characters are perfect. I'm definitely going to be picking up more from her because I've heard that style isn't necessarily typical of her books, so we'll see what I read next. I gave All the Hearts You Eat 3.5 out of 5 stars. Oh boy, then I read The Starving Saints by Caitlin Starling, and what a weird fucking book that was. It is so strange, so bizarre, and I think it's impossible to predict whether or not you're going to like this book until you actually read it. I think it's going to be one of those books that you either love or you hate, and there's going to be no middle ground. This book takes place in a medieval abbey that is under siege, everyone is starving, and suddenly the kind of religious figures, the saints of their religion, show up with food and relief, but things start to get real weird after that. We follow 3 women. We have a kind of disgraced nun, we have a lady knight, and we have a young woman who is kind of hiding in the shadows and has a fair few secrets of her own. I think that I was well prepared for this book because I've read some of Caitlin Starling's stuff before, and I knew just go in, vibes only, just enjoy the ride, and I think that was the best way to read this book. If you're expecting a lot of plots, a lot of answers to questions, and a lot of reasons for things to happen, this won't be the one for you. But I loved it. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. We're in the home stretch, you guys. I listened to the audiobook of How to Survive a Horror Story by Mallory Arnold, and it wasn't necessarily what I was expecting, but I did really enjoy it. This book follows a very famous horror author who has just died, and a number of other people, whether they are authors or people who used to work for him or complete randos, are invited over to his home for the will reading. However, they find out that the will reading isn't so much a will reading as it is a competition to see who is going to survive, because they have all wronged him in some way and the house is going to eat them. It's really campy, it's really silly, it's really fun, it's really pulpy. If you're looking for something serious, this is not it. This is like outrageous, ridiculous, people dying in humorous ways like Monty Python blood spraying out of people's necks and that kind of thing. But I really enjoyed especially the ending of this book. It made me rethink everything that has happened so far, and I really like this. It was a really great audiobook. I would definitely recommend picking it up that way, but I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. We return once again to T. Kingfisher. I read The Wonder Engine. This is the second and final book in the Clock Tower duology, which starts with The Clockwork Boys, which I read earlier this year and really loved. At the end of the self-published version, she has a thing where she talks about why this book was split into 2 instead of being just one really long book. And while I understand her reasoning, I don't know why this book was split into 2. Could have just been one 700-page book and it would have been fabulous. It was still fabulous, but did it need to be split in half? I don't think so. Predictably, I absolutely love this. Again, all the hallmarks of a good T. Kingfisher book. Excellent world, excellent banter, really fun plot, amazing characters. It was just super fun. If you are slowly dying in agony because you don't have the 5th Saints of Steel book, or you don't have the 2nd Swordheart book, I would highly recommend picking this up because it is set in the same world. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then we have The Killer Question by Janice Hallett. I have been wronged by Janice Hallett many times in the past because I absolutely loved her debut, The Appeal, and I have a whole thesis as to why she has never been able to recapture what made The Appeal so good and so fun, but she kind of starts to do it with The Killer Question. I really enjoyed this one. This is a murder mystery centered around a pub quiz, and it's all told via WhatsApp messages and emails, which is very much her kind of style. And it was super fun. Everyone knows the people who take the pub quizzes way too seriously. Everyone knows, like, you know, the random teams and these kind of eclectic group of people who all come to this pub, but it had a really fun mystery. I think it had a stronger mystery than The Appeal, although it missed a lot of the fun of The Appeal and the backstabbing and humor. But I really liked this. I gave it to Scottish Husband and he really enjoyed it too. He finished it last night and I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. And for my last book of the month, I returned once again to T. Kingfisher. I read What Stalks the Deep. This is the 3rd book in the Sworn Soldier series, which is a series of horror novellas, and predictably, again, I loved it for all the same reasons that I've already talked about. In this book, we have the 2 main characters from the very first book in the series reuniting. We have the Doctor again, and we have Alex Easton, of course, and they are investigating. The Doctor's brother has gone missing while exploring a mine, and something weird is going on. And it's great, and I loved it. Alex Easton continues to be an absolute icon. I really loved this. It was super fun. 4.5 out of 5 stars. I'm gonna go have a lie down because that was a lot of books to discuss, and it's getting dark outside, and my light is no longer serving its purpose well enough. I would love to hear in the comments below what you read last month, what some of your highlights of the month were, and also if you've read any of these books, let me know what you thought. I would desperately love to know. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.